Hello, everyone, and welcome to Assertia On, our informative online series looking into hot topics in the world of digital trust. My name is John Jolliffe. I'm product manager for Signing Hub at Assertia, and as usual, I'm joined by Mike Hathaway, Assertia's Chief Product Officer.
Hi, everyone. Hello, John.
Today, we have a very special edition of Assertia On as we present to you the latest evolution of Signing Hub, which we're very proud of. We'd like to spend the next few minutes introducing some of the new features and explaining what our designers were trying to achieve. We'll explain how the new version will be rolled out and when you can get your hands on it, and we'll point you to some of the many resources available to support your transition to the new version.
Yes, indeed. We've been working on this for quite some time now. It's a significant release for Assertia for a number of reasons. And it's great to finally be able to talk to everybody about it in this Assertia On.
It's true. It's an exciting moment. It feels like something we've been living with for quite a while. I know we announced plans for this release some time ago, but there's not been much we've been able to say publicly.
Yeah, I mean the Signing Hub team's been working hard on Signing Hub 8.6. We've been adding features, dealing with customer enhancements. Point of fact, we've had 6 releases in 2024 already, which brings lots of new product capability. And we've been working hard to add a significant number of APIs to the product to support custom integrations.
Absolutely. It's been a busy year. But look, before we get into some of the details about the release, I always like to remind people just how amazingly flexible and uniquely capable Signing Hub is. I don't know any other e-signature application that's made available in so many different ways, right? As a regular public cloud service on signinghub.com. It can be hosted completely on premises by customers in their own data centers if they need control over their data. It's also a product that can be hosted by one of our partners, and they make it available to their customers on their own infrastructure. I think it's important to restate that because what I've become aware of is, Signing Hub means different things to different customers who access it in different ways, and they get different value from the different features that we've had to develop.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. And this is exactly what keeps us all busy and keeps us on our toes. And probably something to think about that competitors don't really have. So a good distinction to make when we start talking about the latest version of Signing Hub is there are 2 significant developments that we need to think about. So firstly, there's the complete redesign of the user interface. So this of course is relevant for users of signinghub.com, our TSP partners, and of course any customer that takes and operates and deploys Signing Hub on premise within their own data centers. Secondly, there's a significant enhancement in our APIs. So something that's much more directed at developers and people that are integrated with Signing Hub. So this enables you to perform any administrative operation from the enterprise and user portal, as well as being able to integrate to envelop the traditional signature workflow.
That's very true. And I realize as we're talking, this is obviously something that's quite difficult to pull off in an audio format. We're talking about a new skin, a new representation of this product. But I think one of the things that we do need to communicate is, most users, they're going to notice a completely new user interface. It's been completely refreshed, so it's got that much more sort of modern, minimalist aesthetic.
Yeah, it's been a love in the making in terms of refreshing the UI. And you're right, it does make it very difficult to articulate that in an Assertia On. So the whole point by working on this new design is actually taking existing Signing Hub and bringing it through a brand new team of UX and UI designers and testers of the product who've zero experience of Signing Hub. So we've come up with new design concepts that meet three main objectives. So first and foremost, making it easier to interact with the product and making it easier to get things signed, making the product more clearer, more intuitive user interactions to ensure users are guided clearly through the UI by calling out elements of where they need to interact with the product next. Secondly, making the product even more accessible. The new UI UX now complies with international accessibility guidelines. The users with accessibility needs can be met and have a much greater experience and being supported through using the product. And then being able to support branding more clearly. So the new design concept provides previews on changes that you're making as you go, and does a far, far better job of letting you know when the design choices or the branding choices that you're making will start to impact users with accessibility needs way, way, way ahead of you rolling this out to your users in a production environment.
Yeah, there's really lots of nice touches, and I suppose the way I explain it is, they come down to a really clever use of color and space. If you're not an e-signature obsessive like we are, you just want to get in and out and sign something without being confused. So some of the things that I think we've put in place, like the new progress bar along the top, so you can see where you are in this workflow and what you need to do and save your progress. You'll see there's a new right-hand viewer pane that loads up any additional information about a document that you're working on. So it's sort of information in context at the time you expect it, which is much easier to understand. And then this, on the left-hand side, you'll have this very dynamic navigation bar that comes and goes depending on the screen size and depending on the cursor position. And all of these features, not only are they adding clarity to the way you interact with the document, they're also a lot better for users with accessibility needs because they all derive from the WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guideline standards. And it's also quite pleasing to see how those elements, they also sort of mutually reinforce and support the notion of better branding controls. In this refreshed, clean UI, you've actually got fewer elements that can be color customized, but because of the layout, the use of that color is much more impactful. So you've got accessibility checks built into the branding checks as well. It's really nice. So I can't wait for people to see it.
Yep, absolutely. And I think whilst all this sounds like we've made dramatic swathing changes to the product, the key thing for people that are familiar with Signing Hub and are already using Signing Hub is Signing Hub is still there. Signing Hub is still the same underlying product. We feel that we've made it better and even easier to use. So what we didn't want to do is make it difficult, for existing users to use the product and prevent them from making that switch. So documents are still either waiting to be used, or they're part of a signing process, part of a workflow, if you will. You still have users who are assigned to specific roles with a specific set of permissions that govern what they can and can't do, and you still have document templates that can be created, stored, saved, and applied to workflows for documents that you sign, or document formats and layouts that you sign on a regular basis. And so, the Assertia team has worked hard to create, or will be creating hard, to create video content to guide and aid people. So, you can stand there and compare and contrast a flow that you would conduct using Signing Hub Classic against the new Signing Hub user interface that's been designed. So our aim is to sort of make this transition as easy as possible for people, but bearing in mind, if you're familiar with the way Signing Hub works today, you'll almost certainly be familiar with the way Signing Hub will work with this new release.
Very good, very good. Yeah, so that's the new UI, but the second element you mentioned was about the APIs, the application programming interfaces. And of course, that's more directed at customers who have their own dev teams. They can take snippets of the Signing Hub functionality and weave them into their own applications for their own purposes. Tell us a bit about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a huge part of the latest Signing Hub release is to make Signing Hub API first, or Signing Hub API first application. So now we have circa 250 API endpoints. And what this basically means is that every button, every switch, essentially anything you can access and click on within the Signing Hub enterprise and user application now has a corresponding API. So that means anything to do with workflow creation, user management, creating templates, signing documents, Absolutely anything you can touch within that user interface has an API to be driven programmatically. You can control every aspect of Signing Hub's enterprise management, workflow, and signing functionality outside of Signing Hub from your own business application. In fact, we now have so many APIs that you can build your own front-end application to access Signing Hub without ever needing to access our UI. This makes Signing Hub truly your own. You can build your own front end to be consistent with your own business application, fully integrated with whatever existing functionality you have, backed with the true power of the Signing Hub API and the ADSS Server Trust Services engine.
Yeah, it's quite an achievement as far as I can see. And I don't know of any other application that can actually claim that kind of API coverage. And it really does mean that the sky's the limit, right? If you're a developer, it opens up all sorts of integration possibilities. You can have all the controls that you need and just the pieces of Signing Hub you need within your workflow. But look, that's the main focus of the release. Let's talk a little bit about how we're going to be making this latest version of Signing Hub available.
Right. Yep, absolutely. So the first key date was the 1st of November. This was the date the latest version of Signing Hub became available to download from the Assertia community portal. So our next key date will be the 1st of March. This is when the new redesigned Signing Hub mobile app becomes available. And now between November and March, it's the festive and New Year's holidays. During this time, everyone has the time, to take a bit of time, have a well-earned break, but also to observe the change freezes that most of the IT industry kind of ends up having to deal with. So this is an ideal opportunity for teams to take the new Signing Hub installation, install it in test systems, become familiar with the new UI, and start to update operational guides, training materials, and really get their hands dirty and roll your sleeves up and get in there and see where the new UI will impact positively your user experience. And then finally, at the start of 2025, SigningHub.com will switch over to the new version for our public cloud customers to be able to see and experience our new UI.
Yeah, so there's a process going on here, and I think listeners will have picked up there's a bit of a gap between where you mentioned the 1st of November and then 1st of March when the mobile app happens. People may be wondering if this matters. I guess the simple answer is that there shouldn't be any real impact. The old Signing Hub mobile app is going to continue to work with the new Signing Hub web application. There may be some sort of difference in the branding and the look and the feel. So you may see some inconsistency in the user experience when you're working across devices until the new mobile app comes. But even there, I'd say, one of the things worth highlighting about the new Signing Hub design is that it's now fully responsive. So actually you do get full feature parity for the entire user interface, irrespective of the size of the screen that you're working on. And that wasn't always the case previously. Sometimes your ability to use some features was impaired a bit depending on the screen size, but that's no longer an issue. So you may never need to use a separate mobile app, with one exception. If you have workflows that require remote signature authorization, you'll need the mobile app because that functionality is only in the mobile app.
Yeah, that's a great point to raise, John. Thank you. So as I said, we expect to go live with the new version of Signing Hub on SigningHub.com for our cloud customers in early 2025. So keep your eye on our blog posts and our LinkedIn media channels to see communications of us firming that date up. And of course, if you're a user of SigningHub.com, there's always a banner that gets put on the landing and login page. So you'll always be abreast of when we intend on performing that upgrade. We're not going to surprise you one day. So this also means once we perform this upgrade, we'll be sending the previous version, Signing Hub 8.6x, into its end of mainstream support phase. So customers will get a slightly longer period than usual. We'll provide a 2-year migration window through to April 2027. During this time, customers will need to plan their upgrade to the new version, obviously running that through staging, test environments, making sure that everyone is happy with the upgrade process. And if you're familiar with upgrades of previous versions of Signing Hub, this shouldn't be anything different. That process should be very, very familiar to people who have upgraded previous versions. So during that time, customers will still be able to use Signing Hub 8.6x. It'll be fully supported. You'll see support for high priority escalations and releases to address P1 issues and security fixes. But critically, Signing Hub 8.6 will no longer see product enhancement requests. Any enhancement requests that a customer logs will automatically be planned, if accepted, into the Signing Hub product. So whilst this is a generous window, a good amount of time you'll be permitted to plan and perform your upgrades, if you do stay on Signing Hub 8.6, you'll be missing out a ton of features. So it's worth sort of bearing that in mind as you plan your 2025 upgrade process.
Yeah, and those new features, that'll be the subject of several other editions of this. I'm sure there's plenty more to say about that. For now, for our listeners, full details of all the changes are available in the release notes. We've also got updated user manuals, and you're going to see a bunch of updated content on other public-facing channels like YouTube in due course. But that's it for this edition of Assertio On. We hope you understand a little bit more about what's coming, and we look forward to helping you get the most out of this as we roll it out across the coming weeks. Thanks, everyone, and see you again soon.